Hello and welcome to our Beginner Dynamics CRM Admin session titled Best Practices for the CRM Beginning Administrator. Today we're going to be talking about the 10 best practices and tips that every admin should know when getting started. So I'm Andy Collect, the Marketing Coordinator here at Ledgeview Partners, and I'm happy today to welcome Tyler Felton, one of our main support consultants here at Ledgeview Partners. He does a great job. I'm sure many of you, if you'd had worked with our support team, have talked to Tyler on occasion. So Tyler is actually also the person who delivered the original presentation at our 2015 CRM conference in Milwaukee, Wisconsin this year at Miller Park. So Tyler, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Looking forward to your presentation. The floor is yours, my man.
Thank you very much, Andy. So as Andy mentioned, we'll be talking about some 10 best practices and tips in different sections of Microsoft Dynamics CRM. On the screen today, you'll see just a quick overview of the 10 different areas that we'll be briefly talking about. We'll be going over some system settings, security roles, duplicate detection, data management, some system views, and then some shared personal views, some business rules, field labels, option set fields, and we'll wrap it up with some tips about opening a Microsoft support request. To kick it off, system settings will be the first thing we'll talk about. We'll just go through a few of them that you may not have known about that may help you out. To access the system settings, you'll want to click on the menu, Settings, and then the Administration button. In this section, you will see a System Settings option to click on. And when you click on the System Settings option, it will pop up with a window with a lot of different tabs and a lot of different sections. We will be telling you which tab these settings are located on as we talk about them. The first thing we may want to mention here is setting up the Quick Find. So the Quick Find or Global Search you will see in the top right corner of your Dynamic CRM. It's highlighted in red. You'll see in this example we search for Alpine. What this global search will do is it'll search multiple different record types for that item or word that you put in there. So in this example we search for Alpine, and you see we found accounts and a contact that included Alpine in it. Now, by default, this global search kind of only searches 8 record entity types that are kind of default out of the box. You may want to customize this, add custom entities to that search, or kind of remove and mix and match what works best for your organization when you're using this global search. So in the System Settings, under the General tab, you will have a Setup Quick Find section. Underneath that, you'll see Select Entities for Search, and you just can push the Select button, as you can see on the image on your left there. This will pop up a new window where you just simply select the entities that you want the search to be able to go through and move them to the right. And conversely, you can select entities that you don't think you use or will need to search and select them and move them to the left list. You simply just click OK to save these settings. The next option we'll talk about here is the Bing Maps. Now this is a great little handy little tool that can show up on records where you have addresses, and it'll find that address and put it on a little Bing map right on the form for you. Now this map is zoomable, so you can zoom in and out, and it does take the form a little bit longer to render because of it. But also you can click on that mini map and it'll bring up a new tab which will give you, if you need to look for directions, it'll give you that full Bing map page with the address filled in already. Now by default, this option is turned off, and if you wanted to turn it on and kind of see how it works for your organization, that'll be under the General tab, and you just change the option to Yes and then click OK to save your changes. Now, if it is on in your organization and you don't really use it, you could come in here to turn it off and maybe increase the load times on your forms a little bit that utilize this Bing Maps option. Now a couple other quick options just to mention here is the CRM for tablets download notification. Now this is just like usually a yellow bar that you may see across your user's screen every now and then that redirects them to information and how to download the CRM for tablets app. If that's something you don't want your users to see, maybe they already have it, or you're just not utilizing it, you may want to come in here and disable that just so that notification is not shown to your users. And then similarly for user experience, you could also disable the navigation tour notification. This is the welcome screen that new users usually see when they log in, or all users. It does allow you to not, the user to select to not show that screen, but that doesn't always work perfectly. So maybe for a better user experience, if your users have seen it or don't really use it, you could just turn it off globally here. The next option we want to talk about here in system settings is auditing. Now auditing is a great tool. Some people, it's almost necessary. It allows you to track changes to your data within CRM. So who changed a field, when was it changed, what was it changed from, and what was it changed to. You can see these in the example on the image on your screen where it shows the date and time it was changed, what kind of change it was, who changed it, and the old value, new value, and the specific field that was changed in these cases. Now for this option to be on, you want to enable it in multiple places. First, you'll want to enable it in the system settings so it's on globally. Then you kind of have to drill down to the specific entity or record type in your system and turn it on, and then you also want to turn it on specific fields. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to only audit specific items that you need to. In this section, we'll just show you how to turn it on globally. And this is, again, in the system settings, it has its own tab called auditing. There will be a checkbox for start auditing. You'll want to check that. And then you do get some additional options that are optional here, such as auditing user access, so you can actually audit when your users log in and from where. And then you also get some special options for certain modules in the system. So for example, the sales entity has quotes, invoices, and orders that are specific to that sales entity that you can turn on, or the marketing entity where you have campaigns, and then the customer service entities where you have case, articles, and contracts. By default, when you're setting the common entities, so your opportunities, leads, accounts, and contacts are all kind of included in that when you turn it on. So by selecting these checkboxes and clicking OK, you've started your first step towards turning on auditing in the system. After that, everything would be in your default solution in settings, customizations, customize the system. You would drill down to your entities and fields, and they all have options on them as well to start auditing. Another system setting to be aware of is under the email tab. It is the attachment file size limit setting. And you'll see on the email tab, set file size limit for attachments, and then you can type in a number in kilobytes there. By default, it's set to 5 megabytes with a maximum of 32 megabytes that you can increase it up to. The important thing to note with this is while it affects email attachments that are placed in the system, it also affects any attachments that you put in the notes section on records. And then once you change that setting, you can just click OK to save those changes. Okay, and the next section here we want to talk about is security roles. You'll want to go into Menu, Settings, and then Security, and then you'll have the option to open security roles. Now, some quick information and suggestions for security roles. We do recommend that you provide the least amount of access necessary. And a good point for this is while it does protect you from malicious data loss, it really mainly protects you from users doing any sort of accidental data loss. Maybe they don't know what a certain button does, or they don't know what a field should be and they enter some information into it. It just can protect you and help keep your data clean. Now, each role in the system has many privileges, and then each one of those privileges has different levels. So we'll briefly go over just a couple quick examples to get you familiarized with that in case you already were not. In this example, we're looking at the account privilege, which has the ability to create, read them, write them, delete accounts, append to accounts, and append accounts, assign them out, and share them. In this example, we'll kind of look at the create and write. Now, each one of these privileges has the different levels as mentioned before. So if the little circle is completely empty, they'll have no access to do that. If it has the little quarter pie, it means they have access to do that to the records that that user owns. And then going up to the half pie, that means they have access to do that privilege to any records that are in their business unit if you use separate business units. And then the 3/4, it actually allows you to do any records in your business unit and child business units. And then finally, the full green circle allows them to do that to any record in the system. So in this example, the salesperson role has the ability to edit or write any account records in the CRM system. Now, the system comes with many default roles, and we usually recommend that you use the salesperson default role kind of as a base if you are not sure where to start. It's got a lot of good access to record salespeople would need, but it really is limited in the ability that they can do see other items in the system or edit other items in the system. So it's just a really good base to start from. And then we also recommend that you copy any of the default roles before you assign them and definitely before you edit them. So to do that, you would just select the default role, go to More Actions, and then Copy Role. What will happen then is it'll pop up a new window to give it a new name, and then you can start editing it. But even if you don't edit or want to make no changes to that role, still copy it before you assign it because you never know when you will want to make changes down the road. Another reason for this is down the road, if you're having any sort of access issues for a user, you can compare their custom role to these default roles and maybe see what's different and what's preventing that user from being able to make that change that they should be able to make in the system. Since there are just so many privileges, it's sometimes not an obvious thing to troubleshoot. Another tip is if you want to provide just one user a specific level of access that other users in their role do not have, we recommend in this situation to just create a blank fresh role and just provide that role that one little action that you need to provide the user. So in this example, we want to provide a user the ability to delete any accounts in the system. So what we would do is create the new role, give them that full organizational level or the full pie access to the delete privilege on the account entity, save it, and assign that role to the user. So roles in CRM are additive, so just because one of their role prevents them to doing something, if another role allows it, they will have the ability to do that. And another point here is beware of third-party security roles in your system, what they do, and who they really need to be assigned to. An example we sometimes come across is the third-party Click Dimensions add-on has a service account security role. Now this role only really needs to be assigned to one user, and that is the user that will be being used for the service account or the access to CRM. We've seen this assigned to users because people think they need it to access Click Dimensions items. And what happens is, in this example, you see that it gives the user the ability to write any or edit any accounts in the system, and that may not be something you intentionally meant to do. So before you assign those third-party security roles, take a look at what they are actually providing your users before you assign them out. The next section we'll talk about here is duplicate detection. To access the settings and the duplicate detection rules in your system, you want to click on Menu, Settings, Data Management, and then you'll have both the duplicate detection settings and the rules, which we'll cover here shortly. Now, the duplicate detection settings are it's just a small little pop-up with 4 checkboxes that allows you to enable it, and then also enable when it's going to run. So when a record is created or updated, when CRM for Outlook goes offline to online, and during data imports. So this allows you to maybe disable it during data imports, but only allow it to run when records are created or updated by your users. Gives you a little bit of flexibility there. Now, duplicate detection rules, out of the box by default, CRM does come with some enabled, so we do recommend you go in, see what's enabled, see if that fits your data, and maybe enable or disable those rules if they do not fit your data. So these rules need to be published for them to be active. So you'll see they either have a status reason of published or unpublished. Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just go in and selecting it and selecting unpublished if that rule does not fit your system. And to create new rules, you simply can click the new button in the top left that's highlighted in the image on your screen. So when you create a new rule, you will need to give it a name. We recommend just naming it something like contacts with the same first name and last name so you can recognize it without opening it up. And then the second option you're going to need to check is the base record type. So this will give you a drop down of all the items or record types in your system. In this example, we selected contact, which automatically fills out the matching record type as contact. It is possible to set up these rules to match between different record types if necessary. The fourth option will be if you want the rule to look for case sensitivity. So if you want to match those uppercase and lowercase exactly, you can make that an option. And then also you can exclude inactive matching records from the search. So if you have inactive accounts or leads and you don't want this to be matching by those, you can definitely make that checkbox. And then last, you have your rules. And in this example, you have, the first name is exactly matching, the last name is exactly matching, and the email is exactly matching. Now, all 3 of those conditions need to be true because it's an AND statement for this rule to actually trigger. Now, we usually recommend creating these rules in 3. This kind of just gives you more accuracy and control over how it's checking your system. Now, everybody's data is going to be a little different, so it'll be up to somebody who knows your data to really kind of have a discussion and hash these out. But in this example, out of the box, there is when a contact first name and last name matches, it will trigger it as a duplicate. You may want to add a third condition to that, such as email or address. When those things match as well, then it's definitely a duplicate, because there's oftentimes a lot of where contacts will just have the same first and last name, but they may not be the same contact. You also do have the option to ignore blank values. Now, so just a quick scenario, say you were importing some contacts and they had the same first and last name as a contact in your system, but neither of them had business phones, but you had business phone as your third option here. Well, if they're both blank, it is actually going to trigger that as an exact match. So you do have the ability to ignore blank values in that business phone field if you like, so that in that situation it wouldn't trigger. This is just an example of the pop-up that comes up to your users when they are saving or updating a record that is then triggered and matches a rule. You'll see at the top it'll be the new or updated record listed, and then in the bottom frame it'll list the potential matching records that could be duplicates of it. Now, this gives you the ability to delete, which we never recommend doing any of those duplicate records, or the ability to merge them right from this form. We also recommend scheduling regular duplicate detection cleanup. So you can schedule a job to run regularly and email your report. This can be found in the same section in Menu, Settings, Data Management, and you'll have a Duplicate Detection Job section. Now in this section, it's just kind of a list view, and you can click New Job. It will give you a wizard to walk through to create that job. And then you need to select some filters that select what data that job is going to run on. So an example here is contacts with the status of active. So what that'll do is it'll filter all the contacts and only check the active ones, and then it will run any rules that are published on the contact record, and then give you a report on if it found anything in there. You have the ability to schedule the job to recur at a time period that works for you, and you can even have the job emailed to you when it's complete. And then we recommend setting up these jobs for any entity that you may use heavily and have duplicate detection rules for. After the job's done, you can evaluate them, go through and merge these duplicates, and just kind of keep your data clean for your users in that way. Now, to just briefly mention merging, while you can merge from the duplicates detection screen, you can also merge from a list view. You'll see the image on your left, you see two users with the name test user. You just select both those users and then the merge button in the ribbon menu at the top. This will pop up a menu where you select a master record, and then you select what data you want to be saved and moved to that master record. The system will then deactivate the other record, so it'll still be in your system, and it will also copy any child records that were on that record that got deactivated to your master record or the one that stays open. The next section we want to talk about is data management. Now, disk space is very important for all users. For CRM Online, you have to take into consideration that you only get the 5 GB per month included in your subscription, and any additional data at 1 GB a month is $9.99 a month. And then for on-premise users, you usually have to consider your SQL server performance and then the cost of disk space, which can increase in a double or triple fashion when you take into account backups. So to remove some unneeded data to save that space, we'll talk about cleaning up some system jobs, file attachments, and audit logs, which are all primary offenders of using up the space. To do this, we'll first talk about bulk record deletion of system jobs. You can access the bulk record deletion mechanism in Menu, Settings, Data Management, under the bulk record deletion section. Here, we can use a recurring bulk delete job to delete system jobs that have built up in the system over time as they've run. And you just simply click the New button in this section, and that'll pop up a new wizard for creating this job. And then you can just click Next on the first screen. Then you'll need to create your filter. The filter, again, is going to select the records that this job will run on. So we're going to look for system jobs. And then we need to filter that down even further. So we're going to do status reason equals succeeded. Now these are just recommended settings, but they do usually work generally for most people. So you want to only delete system jobs that have succeeded, because maybe you need to look back at the failed ones to troubleshoot them. And then you also only want to delete ones that are not recurring. So we want to do reoccurrence start, does not contain data. And then system job type equals workflow or system event. So those are the two most common types of system jobs that build up in your system. And in this example, we did completed on older than 1 month. And you could change that time. So since in this example, we're running it every month, we're just deleting any of the jobs that are older than a month. If you had a lot of system jobs, you could do it more often. Then you do have the option to preview records, which will give you a result of what system jobs in this system it is finding and will delete. And then you can click Next when you are satisfied with your filters. On this page, you can provide a name for your system job. So it's just something simple like maybe monthly system job cleanup. You schedule it. We do recommend you schedule something like this to run overnight or during low system usage. And you can select how often you want the job to run. So this will run every 30 days. And then optionally, you can have it send an email to you with results when you're done, or any administrator. On the screen, once you have entered the information, you can hit Next. and then submit on the final screen. The second type of file that builds up space in your system is file attachments. Now, something you can help if your users are over putting file attachments through emails or in the notes section, you can go into that System Settings Email tab and reduce the limit or the size of files that can be attached in your CRM. And you can also do an advanced find for email messages that have those large attachments and notes. But in this example, we just did an advanced find for email messages that were created in last year, so they're pretty much older than 12 months, and where the attachment size is greater than 3 million or 3 megabytes in this case. And once we run that, you can select and delete all those email messages if that's something that works for your organization. Third option is audit logs. If you do have auditing on, it can take up a lot of space. So in Settings, Auditing, Audit Log Management, you will see a list of date ranges of your audit logs, and you can come in here and delete older audit logs that are taking up a lot of space if you know you'll never have to look back that far anymore. Next, we'll talk about system views. Now, system views are available to all your users. So if you want to modify them, hide them, or edit them, they'll be in the menu, Settings, Customizations section. And then if you click on Customize the System, and then expand the entity down to the entity, which would be account in this case, and then you'll have views under that entity. In the views, you'll see a list of views that are available for the account. And in this example, we will just double-click the Active Accounts view to open it up. Now, since this is a default out-of-the-box view, if you wanted to make a change, we do recommend copying them instead of editing the default view directly. Again, this just lets you go back to them to compare or revert back to them in the future if you ever made a mistake or you just kind of wanted to see what changes were made. To do that, when the view is open, you just click the Save As button at the top, which will pop up a new window to give your new view a name, and then you hit OK. After a little bit, it'll bring that new copied view up, which you can then change. In the views, you can modify and reorder the columns, add, remove the columns, change the column width size, and change the filter that this view is filtering on, which uses advanced find filters, and then you can save and close it. In this example, you probably no longer need the active accounts view because you have your new active accounts new view. So we do recommend selecting that view and deactivating it by clicking the More Actions Deactivate from the menu. This will hide it from your users' views so they don't see a ton of views or get confused over which views are best for them or views that have similar names and then they're not quite sure what data it's filtering for them. So, and those views are always available for reactivation here in the same section. Along with system views, setting up quick find views is a very powerful tool. So every record or entity has its own quick find view for the most part. And what these views do is they actually affect both the global search and the list view search. They affect what data is filtered in, what data is searched for, what columns are shown, and in the global search it even affects the data that is shown up there in the tiles that come up. So this is just very similar to editing a regular system view, except when you open it, you get a couple different options. You get the Add View columns, which basically shows different columns on your view, and then you get the Add Find columns. Now the Find columns increase what the search will search for in that record type. So say you want to be able to search by address or street, and that's not currently working, you can come in here, edit the quick find view, add find columns, select that field, save it, and then when you go to search in either the global search or the quick find list search, it will be able to find addresses for you. We'll take a quick look at how this is affected in the global search. So the first 3 columns that you give in this quick find view are what shows up on the global search. They also are the first 3 columns in the list view as well. The next section we'll want to talk about is shared personal views. So users can create and share their own personal views. These views are only seen by the person that created them or who they shared them with, and they're created using Advanced Find. So you can access them from the List View, Create Personal View option, or from the Advanced Find button. In creating a personal view, you just need to select the entity that the view is going to show up for, so accounts in this example. Select New, and then you can create your filters here. So this is going to search for accounts that are active, where the owner is the current user, and where the state equals California. You can then click Save and name this view My Active Accounts in California, and then save again. And then you can share this with other users. So you just click Save Views and select the entity for the view, select the view, click on Share, add the users that you wish to share this with, you give them different permissions, and then click Share. You can also delete or reassign these shared views in a similar fashion by clicking on the Save Views in Advanced Find, changing the record type to All, selecting all the saved views, and deleting them. Now this could be important, as we've run into from time to time. If you ever disable a user in your CRM and maybe they get deleted from Active Directory or from your Office 365 account, then you don't have the ability to re-enable that user. You are either going to have to edit that database directly, which is not supported by Microsoft if you're CRM on-premise, or if you're CRM online, you'll have to spend a lot of time trying to get Microsoft support to edit that database directly for you. So anytime you disable a user, maybe come in here, check out their saved views, and reassign them out to other users or delete them. Next, we'll talk about some business rules in CRM. So business rules are really cool, and they were added in Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2013. They allow you to perform actions on forms that would otherwise take some JavaScript or custom code. Things like hiding and showing fields, setting field values, setting fields as required or optional, showing error messages in certain situations, and locking and unlocking fields. They also run in real time, so as soon as a field changes and makes the trigger of the business rule, it will run, so you don't have to wait to save the record. And they're created pretty simply in the form editor. So we will go into Menu, Settings, Customizations, click on Customize the System, drill down to the entity and the forms for that entity, so in this case, Account and then Forms. We'll have a list of our forms here, and we'll double click and open up the main form for that account. Now in the form editor, you will have a business rules button at the top, and when you click on that button, it will slide out the business rules explorer from your right. And in here you can just simply click new business rule at the bottom of it. Now business rules run on certain conditions, so the first thing you want to do is select a condition when this is going to run. In this example, just whenever the account rating equals a certain value, and then you hit the check mark to save that condition. Then you want to select an action that will happen when that is true. So set the visibility, so show the account number field on the form, and then hit the check mark to save it. After you have your condition and your action, you want to save the whole business rule, and then you have to activate them. Now, business rules do not work on the form until they are in an active state. And you also want to always create business rules in pairs. So just because you create it to show that account number, it's not going to automatically know to unshow it when the account rating equals a different value. So you need to create another rule that will hide it in the opposite condition. Next thing we would like to talk about briefly is some information on field labels. So oftentimes field labels get cut off on the form, and people always wonder if there's any way to show more space or give more space to that label. You can hover over the label to see the full text. And in this example, you can just see there's the address 1 primary contact name field, and it gets cut off relatively early in this example. So there's a couple things we can do to handle this. First, we'll go into the menu, Settings, Customizations, to get to the Form Editor again. And we'll select the Customize the System to get to the default solution, and drill down in Entities, and the Account, and then Forms. And we'll open up that main account form again by double-clicking on it. So the first option we can do is modify the field label width. Now, you're going to be modifying this for all the fields that are in that section on the form. So to do this, you actually want to double-click to open the section properties, or just click on the section name so it's got that thin blue line around it, and then click the Change Properties button at the top. On the Display tab, you can increase the field label pixel width right on the bottom there. After you do that, you just click OK. Then you want to save your form, publish your form, close your form editor, and refresh your CRM page. Here's an example of what that end result will be. You see that it moved the field attributes to the right, the data, and you have more space for your field label width, and you can see the full label now. Our second option here is to modify the field label location. So again, we can go into the form editor, double click on the section, or click it and click the Change Properties button. This time we're going to click on the Formatting tab, and at the bottom change the field label position from side to top, and then we'll click OK. Save the form, publish the form, close the form editor, and refresh your dynamic CRM page. You will see now for that section, all the labels are above the data on your form, and you can see the full width. Our next section we want to talk about is some information on option set fields in the system. Now, option sets are drop-down lists, and there's a couple different variations of them. You have the local option sets, which are built right on that specific field, and they can only be used for that field. We almost always, 99% of the time, recommend creating global option sets. What this does is it creates a list of options for you that you can use on multiple fields in multiple different entity types. What's great about this is if you ever need to go in and modify them, add options, you only have to modify it in one place, and it will work for all the different fields that are using that same drop-down list. Another important thing to know about option sets is they're a little weird in that each option in them is actually a value in the database. And then the value is tied to the label that you see in the drop-down. So in this example, West is actually the value 1 with the label of West. Now this gets important when we talk about modifying these. So we'll briefly talk about where to modify them first, which will be in the, again, menu, Settings, Customization section. Customize the system, Entity, and then the Field section. Or if we want to talk about global option sets, it will be in its own section below the entities. So for local option sets, again, if you just open that field, that list of options will be right there on that field, as you can see in the image on the right. And it's in the you can see the option for using existing option set to no. If that was set to yes, that would mean it's using a global option set, and it would give you a button that would link you out to that global option set. Or you can navigate directly to that global option set in the list, and on the right you'll see the different lists. So in this example we are using a global region option set. And here you will see an example of just that option set being listed with the 4 options, the value of 1, and the label of West. Again, we recommend to use these global option sets as often as possible. And then there's a couple ways you can do it. We recommend creating them directly in the option set. And then you can create them also, though, from a new field where you select Use Existing Option Set to Yes. And then you can either select an existing one from the drop-down list or click New to create one right from that new field. Now, coming back to that value and how this is important, mainly when you want to delete options from this option set, you always need to check existing records in the system to make sure they have not had that value selected, because if you were to just come in here, delete Southwest, for example, and then later somebody else comes in, creates a new option, but uses that value of 14, any records in your system that had selected Southwest in the past will now show the new label. They will have shown blank in between, but really they did have that value of 14 stored in them. So just remember to use an advanced find on all your records and change those away from the option that you're going to be deleting to another option, and then you can delete your option. And to close it up, we'll be talking about just some tips about opening Microsoft support requests. If you are a CRM Online customer, it's included in your subscription, and you have 2 ways to contact them. Directly through the portal, your Office portal, which is recommended, or they do have a phone number. Some information you can gather before this call that will help speed up your service requests with them is the exact error message. Screenshots are great. Know if the issue occurs when using the CRM web client as well as the Outlook client, or if it's both. And if possible, and you're on a Windows machine, you could use the Windows Problem Step Recorder. What this does is you can reproduce the error with the recorder on. It will take screenshots as you're reproducing the error, including steps that you're doing, clicks that you're making, and form a file that you can then send to the technician so they can see exactly what you were doing, and you will not have to spend that time reproducing it for them with the Windows Problem Recorder or through a screen share. Also, knowing how long the issue has been happening for you will really help them narrow down to maybe if it's related to an open incident on their side. And then a big one is knowing if the issue affects a single user or all users or a small subset of users. A great thing to do is provide them with a higher level security role that you know is not having the issue, and then have them test, and then always remember to remove that security role. Because missing certain system security privileges that may not be obvious can cause a lot of issues in the system. If you are a CRM on-premise customer, you have some options. The Premier support is usually their most expensive, but the quickest and best support that they offer. But it's very, very pricey. Or if you have Microsoft Software Assurance, which we highly recommend that you keep up to date, as it gives you updates and future versions and the support and requests and the support number. There is a third option of having a dynamic service plan only, if that is something that will work for you. But if you don't have any service plans at all, they will charge you $499 per incident. So that's why it's really, really important. And we usually recommend just using the Microsoft Software Assurance. It's almost always worth it if you have to call Microsoft for any issue at all. And that's all we were going to talk about here today. And to recap, we just talked about some system settings, security roles, duplicate detection, data management, some system views, shared personal views information, business rules, field labels, option set fields, and wrapped it up with opening a Microsoft support request. And before you go here, just wanted to throw some resources up there for CRM administrators. These are just some great blogs out there by Microsoft, by the community. You have our LedgeView Partners blog, the CRM team blog, Microsoft white papers and technical documentation. The CRM updates, release dates, build numbers, and collateral blog is great. It'll show you and give you links to any updates for CRM going back to 2011 up to 2015. CRM in the field and the CRM support blog. The Microsoft Dynamics community forums are great. And just one last little plug for the CRM diagnostic page that is included both on-premise and online, where you just put your CRM server URL in there followed by the rest of that link, and it'll give you some latency information and a lot of diagnostics from that machine you are on to give you some information. Really appreciate everybody taking the time, and I hope this information helped you out, and have a great day.